Guiding Light is an American television soap opera that is listed in Guinness World Records as the longest-running television drama in history, broadcast from 1952 until 2009, preceded by a 15-year broadcast on radio. Guiding Light stands as the fourth longest-running program in all of broadcast history. Only the Norwegian children's radio program Lørdagsbarnetimen, the American country music radio program Grand Ole Opry and the BBC religious program The Daily Service have been on the air longer. Guiding Light was created by Irna Phillips, and began as an NBC Radio serial on January 25, 1937. On June 2, 1947, the series was transferred to CBS Radio, before starting on June 30, 1952, on CBS Television. It would continue to be broadcast concomitantly on radio until June 29, 1956. The series was expanded from 15 minutes to a half hour during 1968, and then to a full hour on November 7, 1977. The series broadcast its 15,000th CBS episode on September 6, 2006. On April 1, 2009, it was announced that CBS had cancelled Guiding Light after a 72-year run due to low ratings. The show taped its final scenes for CBS on August 11, 2009, and its final episode on the network aired on September 18, 2009. On October 5, 2009, CBS replaced Guiding Light with an hour-long revival of Let's Make a Deal, hosted by Wayne Brady. On August 22, 2013, Grant Alexander, who had portrayed Philippe Spaulding on Guiding Light from 1983 through the series finale in 2009, revealed in an interview with Carolyn Hinsey that former Guiding Light executive producer Paul Rauch had been working on a continuation of Guiding Light at the time of his death in December 2012. Origins, plot development, and cast. Guiding Light has had a number of plot sequences during the series' long history, on both radio and television. These plot sequences include complex storylines, and different writers and casting. 1930s and 1940s. The series was created by Irna Phillips, who based it on personal experiences. After giving birth to a stillborn baby at age 19, she found spiritual comfort listening to the radio sermons of Preston Bradley, a famous Chicago preacher and founder of the People's Church, a church which promoted the brotherhood of man. It was these sermons that originated the idea of the creation of the Guiding Light, which began as a radio series. The original radio series was first broadcast as 15-minute episodes on NBC Radio, starting on January 25, 1937. The series was transferred to CBS Radio during 1947. 1950s. The Guiding Light was broadcast first by CBS Television on June 30, 1952. With the transition to television, the main characters became the Bauers, a lower-middle-class German immigrant family. These episodes were also 15 minutes long. During the period from 1952 to 1956, The Guiding Light existed as both a radio and television serial, with actors recording their performances twice for each day that the shows were broadcast. The radio broadcast of The Guiding Light ceased production during 1956, ending this overlap. The Guiding Light ranked as the number one rated soap opera during both 1956 and 1957, before being replaced during 1958 by As the World Turns. After Irna Phillips was transferred to As the World Turns during 1958, her protégée Agnes Nixon became head writer of The Guiding Light. 1960s. Agnes Nixon relinquished her role as chief writer during 1965 to work for the series Another World. On March 13, 1967, The Guiding Light was first broadcast in color. On September 8, 1968, the program was expanded from 15 to 30 minutes. The 1960s featured the introduction of African American characters, and the main emphasis of the series shifted to Bill and Bert's children, Mike and Ed. The character of Bill Bauer was written out in July 1969, presumed dead after a plane crash. A number of new characters were introduced during the mid to late 1960s, perhaps most notably Dr. Sarah McIntyre, who would remain a major character through the early 1980s. 1970s. Much of the story during the first half of the 1970s was dominated by Stanley Norris' November 1971 murder and the ensuing trial, as well as the exploits of villainesses Charlotte Waring and Kit Vested. A pivotal character, off and on, until the spring of 1998, Roger Thorpe, was introduced on April 1, 1971. Although originally proposed to be blonde, fair-skinned preppy type who was dating his boss, Stanley Norris, daughter Holly, Michael Zaslow, a darker hair, less preppy type actor was hired for the role instead in a brilliant move by longtime casting director, Betty Ree. Zaslow would take Roger into being, at first, a seemingly less than caring, in it for himself but nice enough man to one who would end up being one of the more complicated and multifaceted villains to be seen on daytime television. Pressure by newer, more youth-oriented soap operas such as All My Children, Procter & Gamble hired head writers Bridget and Jerome Dobson during 1975, who started writing in November 1975. The Dobsons introduced a more nuanced, psychologically layered writing style, and included timely storylines, including a complex love-hate relationship between estranged spouses step-siblings Roger and Holly. They also created a number of well-remembered characters, including Rita Stapleton, whose complex relationships with Roger and Ed would propel much of the story for the remainder of the decade, and Alan Spaulding and Ross Marler, who would both remain major characters into the 2000s. The decision was made during the fall of 1977 to reintroduce the thought-dead character of Bill Bauer, in a major retcon. Everyone thought that he had died in an airplane crash in July 1969, but he was said to actually be alive. One of the problems with this return is that the Dobsons seemed not quite sure what to do with his return. Although it was shocking, at first, to many of the characters, Bill himself would end up being charged for a murder of a man in Vancouver. Bill's return did introduce the audience and the Bauers to another character that would stay on the show until September 1984, Hilary Kincaid, Bill's daughter, and she would become a nurse at Cedars and a major character. Surprisingly to many viewers, Jerome and Bridget Dobson killed the show's young heroine, Leslie Jackson Bauer, in June 1976. Leslie was killed by a drunk driver. In November 1975, the name was changed in the show's opening and closing visuals from The Guiding Light to Guiding Light. On November 7, 1977, the show expanded to a full hour and was broadcast from 2:30–3:30 p.m. daily. The series during the 1970s emphasized the Bauers and the Spauldings. Several notable characters were introduced. 1980s. Bridget and Jerome Dobson assumed the head writing duties of As the World Turns in late 1979. Former actor Douglas Marland, who previously wrote for NBC's The Doctors, and ABC's General Hospital, assumed the head writing reins of Guiding Light in 1979. He introduced many new characters, including the Reardon family. During May 1980, Guiding Light won its first Outstanding Drama Series Daytime Emmy. One of Marlander unregistered trademark's most remembered stories featured the character of Carrie Todd Marler, played by Jane Elliott. Carrie was diagnosed with multiple personalities. Marland had barely delved into her psychosis when Elliott's contract was abruptly terminated by executive producer Alan M. Potter in 1982. As a result, Marland resigned in protest. Citation needed. During the early 1980s, the show began to emphasize younger characters more, as an attempt to compete with the younger skewing ABC soap operas. A number of longtime characters were eliminated during this time, including Ben and Eve McFarren, Diane Ballard, Sarah McIntyre, Adam Thorpe, Barbara Norris Thorpe, Justin Marler and Steve Jackson. Actress Lenore Korsdorf quit the show in 1981, and producers decided not to recast the role of Rita Stapleton Bauer, given how popular Korsdorf had been. The Bauer family matriarch, Bertha Burt Bauer, died in March 1986, following the real-life death of Carita Bauer in 1985. The character was said initially to be visiting Meta Bauer for several months, until a tribute episode could be constructed where the characters could mourn Bert's passing on screen. An ever more complicated storyline emphasized the Bauers, Spauldings, Reardons, and Raines families. Pam Long, actress and writer for NBC's Texas from 1981 to 82, became head writer during 1983 and re-emphasized the series on Freddie Bauer, now called Rick, Philip Spaulding, Mindy Lewis, and Beth Raines. She also introduced characters Alexandra Spaulding, performed by accomplished Emmy-nominated actress Beverly McKinsey, of Another World, and Texas fame, and Reva Shane, played by Kim Zimmer. The ratings in the mid to late 1980s were solid and healthy. However, no competitive network soap opera had succeeded in attaining the weekly #1 spot in the ratings from ABC's General Hospital. Consequently, when both Anthony Geary and Jeannie Francis left their respective show in 1984, the ABC soap's ratings took a hit. Its direct competitor, Guiding Light, benefited when it saw its ratings rise to #1. Guiding Light would become the only serial from a competitive network to dethrone General Hospital from the Nielsen's top spot, which it had held from the 1979 to 1980 season, for a consecutive 3 weeks. Eventually, CBS daytime The Young and the Restless would reign over GH in 1988. 9. Pamela K. Long would return for a second head writer stint from 1987 to 1990. The characters of Roger Thorpe and Holly Norris returned to the series during the late 1980s. Maureen Garrett reprised her role of Holly in 1988, followed by Michael Zaslow as Roger in 1989. 1990s. With the new decade, the series' storytelling transitioned from Long's homespun style to a more realistic style with a new group of chief writers. The Bauers, Spauldings, Lewises, and the Coopers had been established as core families, and most major plot developments concerned them. The show generally held on in the middle of the pack as far as ratings went throughout the decade. The show suffered major character losses mid-decade, including the car accident death of Maureen Bauer and the exit of Alexandra Spaulding from the story. As the decade progressed, the program developed a series of outlandish plot twists seemingly to compete with the serial's Passions and Days of Our Lives. In an attempt to revive the series, the character Reva Shane was brought back to Springfield during April 1995. She'd been presumed dead for the previous 5 years, after having driven her car off of a bridge and into the water off the Florida Keys, and later that July, Marcy Walker was eliminated after nearly 2 years with the show, playing the anti-hero in Tangy Hill in favor of the full-time return of fan favorite, Nola Chamberlain, played by Lisa Brown. Brown returned on screen as Nola Chamberlain during late July 1995, with Walker appearing on screen as Tangy Hill a month later, during August 1995. During January 1996, soap opera veteran Mary Stewart joined the cast as Meta Bauer. The character would remain on the show until Stewart's death during 2002. January 1998, Bethany Joy Lenz came to the show as teenage Reva Clone. Producers were so impressed during her 3-week stint as teenage Reva Clone on the show, that she was rehired later that year in the contract role of Michelle Bauer Santos on the daytime serial. From 1999 to 2000. 2000s. The 2000s began with the division of the show into 2 locales, Springfield and the fictional island nation of San Cristobal. In Springfield, the Santos mob dynasty created much of the drama. Meanwhile, the Royal Winslow family had their own series of intrigues with which to deal. During 2002, however, San Cristobal was eliminated from the series and the mob's influence in the story was subsequently diminished and, with the departure of character Danny Santos during 2005, eliminated altogether. Also, Guiding Light celebrated its 50th anniversary as a television show on June 30, 2002. During 2004, former director and actress Ellen Wheeler took over as executive producer of Guiding Light. She and writer David Kreisman made numerous changes to the sets, stories, and the cast. Several veteran actors were eliminated, mainly because of budget decreases. Because of the lack of veteran influence, Wheeler re-emphasized the youth of Springfield, especially the controversial pairing of cousins Jonathan and Tammy. During 2006, an episode featured character Harley Cooper gaining heroic abilities. The episode was semi-continued in an 8-page story in Select Marvel Comics productions. The series had its 70th broadcast anniversary during 2007. The anniversary was commemorated with the initiation of website findyourlight.net and a program of outreach, representing Irna Phillips' original message. There was also a special episode during January 2007, with current cast members playing Phillips and some of the earlier cast members. The series also introduced special beginning credits commemorating the anniversary. Despite low ratings, the show won 2007 Daytime Emmy Awards for Best Writing and Best Show. On April 1, 2009, CBS announced that it would not renew the show and the last broadcast date would be September 18, 2009. Procter & Gamble initially announced that they would attempt to find another outlet to distribute the series, but later admitted that they had been unsuccessful in doing so, and that on September 18, after 57 years on television, Guiding Light would end its broadcast history on CBS. During the final weeks of the series, numerous characters from the series' past passed through Springfield one last time, culminating with Ed and Holly, who impulsively embarked on an unspecified journey together. Alan Spaulding suffered a fatal heart failure during the final week, but not before resolving conflicts with many former adversaries, including Jonathan. Alan's death brought the characters together in a way that could not have happened while he was still alive. Alexandra is especially distraught about Alan's death, but was pleased when Fletcher Reed came to the Spaulding mansion after Alan's service, and convinced her to accompany him to Europe. Beth and Philip have grown closer and decided to remarry. Mindy Lewis returned to Springfield for good, and she and Rick also became fonder of each other. Revan and Josh had a discussion, and agreed that they each had their respective problems that they need to solve. Josh told Revan that he was leaving Springfield for a job for the next year, but proposes that he return 1 year from that date, and if by that time, she wants to reunite with him, she should meet him at the lighthouse, and if she is not there, he will assume she is not interested. The final episode is pleasant, featuring many of the characters gathering in the park for a large picnic. Toward the end of the episode, it jumps forward 1 year, by which time, Philip and Beth have reunited, as have Rick and Mindy. Olivia and Natalia, happy with their new baby, pick Raphael up, as he returns from the army. The episode concludes with Josh arriving at the lighthouse, as promised, and finding Reva there. They declare their undying love. James, Ashley, and Daisy leave Springfield and relocate to Santa Barbara, California. Josh asks if Reva is packed, to go on an adventure. The two grab the luggage, and with Reva's young son, they climb into Josh's pickup truck. Josh says to Reva, "You ready?" She replies, "Always." As the truck drives away with the lighthouse in the background, the end appears on the screen before a final fade-out. The song heard playing in the background during the final scene is Together by Michelle Branch. The final episode also included the original tagline, with some revision, printed on the screen with the words "There is a destiny that makes us family," as well as quick film clips of each of the show's title cards and announcers during the 6 decades it was on television, leading to the show's former long-time beginning announcement, "And now, the guiding light." Breaking the fourth wall. Since 1986, the series had been known to break the fourth wall, or somehow call attention to the fact that the show is fictional. In 1987, Chelsea, Frank, and Rusty are sitting in Reva's kitchen when the television covering Alan and Philippe Spaulding's news coverage announcement about their shares at Spaulding. The news report actually preempted Guiding Light, cutting in during the then dance theme song, My Guiding Light, just after the appearance of the old blue and yellow logo. In an early 1992 episode, Samantha Marler comments to Julie Kamery that her apartment looks like the set of Murder, she wrote, and that she would not hire a housekeeper because she is not rich as Kim. In 1995, Frank tells Nick said that Nadine has an alarm set due to a certain show was moving to 10 a.m. from 3 p.m., blatantly referring to Guiding Light itself. In a 1998 episode, Jenna and Cassie are eating breakfast in the Fifth Street diner when Eleni comments to them about her and Marina becoming addicted to that juicy drama with the jewel thief and the talk show host, in which Hart enters and replies, "You mean that series after As the World Turns?" In 2003, Edmund and Cassie are having dinner and comments about a woman in the news who was so evil that her family tricked into getting out of town, but instead she went to Vancouver to stalk her ex-boyfriend, who has a history of crazy ex-girlfriends, in which Cassie comments that she sounds like a Jocelyn Seagrave, and unless he's as good-looking as a Hillard, or a Grillo, don't kill yourself over a man, referring to the previous actors, Marshall Hillard and Frank Grillo, who played Hart. In a 2006 episode, Jonathan and Reva are talking at Cross Creek, in which Jonathan replies that he wish he looked as good as Larkin Mallory, who played Reva's ex, Carl in the 80s, but then Reva replies that he looks better than Vincent Irizarry, who is timed to be a gangster and have a twin brother. In an August 2009 episode, Jeffrey O'Neill and Holly Lindsay are eating lunch at company, and in which Holly says that he has a lot in common with Roger Thorpe, in which the check has the initials MZ, and Holly winks. Production and locales. Guiding Light was broadcast from 3 locations: Chicago, from 1937 until 1946. Hollywood, from 1947 until 1949. And New York City starting during 1949. It was relocated from Chicago to Hollywood to take advantage of the talent pool. Production was subsequently relocated to New York City, where the majority of soap operas were produced during the 1950s, 1960s and much of the 1970s. It remained based in New York City until the show's conclusion. Its final taping location was the CBS studios in Midtown Manhattan. From the 1970s to the 1990s it was filmed at the Chelsea Studios. From soon before February 29, 2008, outdoor scenes were filmed on location in Peapock, New Jersey. The location filming coincided with another significant production change, as the series became the first American weekday soap opera to be recorded digitally. The production team chose to film with Canon XHG-1 HDV camcorders. Unlike the old production model with pedestal-style cameras and traditional 3-sided sets, handheld cameras allowed producers to choose as many locations as they wished. Final seasons. During the daytime drama's 57th season on television and 72nd overall season, the series had changed its look to a more realistic experience in an attempt to compete with the growing popularity of reality television. On February 29, 2008, A New Beginning replaced the 70th anniversary opening. The new look of Guiding Light included freehand camera work and less action shown on traditional studio sets. Producer Ellen Wheeler introduced a shaky cam style, present in a number of movies, featuring extreme close-ups and frequent cuts, including those that broke the axis. Also new was the filming of outdoor scenes and actual outdoor settings. Even many indoor scenes had more of an on-location feel, repurposing real locations, such as Guiding Light's production offices, to be motel rooms, nail salons, Quick Mart and other businesses or locations. Thereby, the series had numerous sets without the cost of numerous separate locations. CBS and the show's producers had hoped that the new look would increase ratings, but the plan was ultimately unsuccessful. Production summary: the action has also been set in 3 different locales. It was based in the fictional towns of Five Points and Selby Flats before its final locale of Springfield. Cast and characters. Broadcast history. Unlike most attempts made by popular radio serials to convert to a television version, Guiding Light didn't have any difficulty holding on to its old listening audience and simultaneously earning a new fan base on television. For at the time Guiding Light made its television debut, neither ABC nor NBC had broadcast programs on their respective networks at 2:30 p.m. Eastern/1:30 Central, where CBS first placed Guiding Light. However, 6 months into the run, the network moved the serial to a time slot that gave it great popularity with its housewife audience, 12:45 p.m/11:45 a.m. It kept the new time slot for the next 15 years and 8 months, sharing the half-hour with its sister Procter & Gamble packaged soap, Search for Tomorrow. Guiding Light handled the competition breezily, even against otherwise legendary shows such as Queen for a Day on ABC and NBC's Truth or Consequences. Usually, Guiding Light ranked second in the Nielsen ratings behind another PMG serial, As the World Turns. 1968, however, saw changing viewership trends that prompted CBS to expand its last two 15-minute daytime dramas, disrupting long-standing viewing habits. Search for Tomorrow took over the entire 12:30 1/11:30 noon period, with Guiding Light returning to its first time slot, 2:30/1:30, albeit in the now standard half-hour format, on September 9. This twin bill of expansions also caused the dislocation of The Secret Storm and the beloved Art Linkletter's House Party, as well as the cancellation of the daytime To Tell the Truth. The next 12 years would bring several similar shifts around CBS lineup. The 1970s saw Guiding Light's popularity dip somewhat, largely from the competition being imposed upon it by younger-leaning serials such as The Doctors on NBC, but it still garnered decent ratings. After 4 years, CBS bumped its time slot up by a half hour to accommodate P&G's demand that The Edge of Night move to 2:30/1:30, a move that led to the end of that show on CBS 3 years later. In the meantime, Guiding Light stayed steadily on course against NBC's Days of Our Lives, another soap favored by younger women, and ABC's The Newlywed Game. In late 1974, ABC replaced The Newlywed Game with a $10,000 pyramid, which went on to garner strong ratings, but not greatly at GL's expense. Meanwhile, by fall 1975, the impending departure of The Edge of Night for ABC, to say nothing of CBS' planned expansion of As the World Turns, affected Guiding Light by pushing it back to 2:30/1:30 once more in December. At that time, NBC still ran The Doctors in the 2:30 slot, and ABC had a short-lived hit the next year with an updated version of the game show Break the Bank. To complicate the picture further, ABC opted to make its first show expansions, that of One Life to Live in General Hospital, in July 1976. Each of those shows would occupy one half of a 90-minute block until November 4, 1977. With this in mind, ABC and CBS acted to give a contending chance to both General Hospital and Guiding Light by expanding them to an hour in length. CBS did so first by expanding Guiding Light on November 7, 1977. This gained particular importance when ABC finally added 15 minutes to both One Life to Live and General Hospital on January 16, 1978, so that Guiding Light straddled those two programs, as well as the first half of sister P&G show Another World on NBC. Despite General Hospital surprising all observers by skyrocketing from near cancellation to the top place in the ratings with the Luke and Laura storyline, Guiding Light, holding its own while in direct competition with General Hospital, still hit an upswing as the decade ended. On February 4, 1980, CBS bumped Guiding Light down again, to 3 p.m/2C, in the midst of a major scheduling shuffle intended to give The Young and the Restless a shot at beating ABC's All My Children. It remained in this time slot for the rest of its run in some markets, facing General Hospital and NBC entries such as Texas, The Match Game, Hollywood Squares Hour and Santa Barbara. None of these shows, not even General Hospital itself, had any significant impact on the ratings of Guiding Light at 3 p.m. during this period. Overall, the first half of the 1980s saw a revival in Guiding Light unregistered trademark's popularity, with a top 5 placing achieved in most years and even a brief dethroning of then powerhouse General Hospital from the number 1 ratings spot for 3 consecutive weeks. However, as the decade progressed, the ratings slipped a bit, although it was still performing solidly. In 1995, beginning with CBS flagship station WCBS-TV in New York, Guiding Light began airing at 10 a.m. Eastern Time in several markets. Its once solid performance began to crumble by the mid-1990s, when its ratings sunk as low as 9th place out of 10. However, during the controversial Clones storyline in 1998, the ratings experienced a brief resurgence, moving up to 5th for many weeks that summer. Nielsen reported Guiding Light had 5 million viewers in 1999. Up until its finale in 2009, stations in a number of markets aired Guiding Light in the morning either at 9 or 10 a.m. local time. Miami, Chicago, Baltimore, Boston, Detroit, New York City, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Orlando, Fort Wayne, Indiana, South Bend, Indiana, Portland, Maine, Albany, New York, and Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. Guiding Light aired at 12 noon local time in Honolulu, Hawaii. In Savannah, Georgia, it aired at 4 p.m. local time. Before 2004, stations that aired Guiding Light in the morning were always one episode behind those that aired the program at its official time slot of 3 p.m. This changed in March 2004, during the first day of the NCAA March Madness basketball tournament, in which stations airing the show at 10 a.m. were able to catch up with stations that televised it at 3 p.m. Starting in 2006, stations that televised Guiding Light at 9 a.m. were also offered a same-day feed to catch up with the rest of the network. As a result of this, daily episodes for the remaining years of GL were the same on all stations regardless of time slot. Guiding Light maintained strong ratings in Pittsburgh, despite being moved to 10 a.m. in 2006. According to a 2006 article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Dr. Phil hadn't been able to pull in the same numbers that Guiding Light did in that time slot a year prior, while Guiding Light was maintaining its audience share. One CBS affiliate that never aired the show was KOVR-TV in Sacramento, California, which had become a CBS affiliate in 1995. Before CBS affiliated with KOVR, it had been affiliated in Sacramento with KXTV, which had dropped Guiding Light from its schedule in 1992 and never aired it again. As such, the show has been preempted in the Sacramento area since 1992. NEM-TV in Flint Bay City, Michigan initially ran the soap before dropping it in 1996 because of disappointing ratings. In the fall of 2006, WNEM began running Guiding Light on its digital channel My5 at 10 a.m., airing there for the remainder of its run. Internationally, Guiding Light currently airs in Iceland, Italy, Hungary and Serbia. It also aired September 3, 2007 to August 26, 2011 in the UK on Zone Romantica/CBS Drama, and was pulled at the point where the outside location filming was due to begin. The last screen scene of the show in the UK was Cassie hiding out with troubled son Will just as the rest of the family were discovering that he had actually killed his father Alonzo. 60 Minutes featured a segment on the cast and crew of Guiding Light discussing the show and its eventual cancellation. The segment was rebroadcast on July 18, 2010. When the show signed off in September 2009, its 1.6 rating tied the record that the Doctors had set in the Nielsen's for the lowest-rated soap opera when the latter aired its final episode in 1982. A revival of the game show Let's Make a Deal, this time with Wayne Brady at the helm, premiered on CBS in the 10:00 slot once GL signed off the air. Broadcast history in Canada. In Canada, Guiding Light was available to viewers directly through CBS TV network affiliates from border cities or cable TV feeds until the show's ending in 2009. In addition, Guiding Light also made it on several Canadian television networks through the 1980s up until its last air date. Atlantic Satellite Network, a supplementary service to its ATV system of CTV affiliated exclusively for Atlantic Canada, aired the soap simultaneously with the CBS feed from 1983 to 1984. Then, the broadcast was moved at 12 noon until 1985. The show also aired in French in the Canadian province of Quebec. TVA, a Quebec privately owned French-language television network, rebroadcast episodes in French translation 12 months behind for a short period in 1984. In the early 1990s, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation briefly aired the P&G serial nationally at 3 p.m. in each specific local Canadian time zone. The CBC television broadcast of Guiding Light was also on its schedule during the latter part of the 1960s during the serial 15-minute format. On both occasions, the daytime drama was only aired for a few seasons. After an hiatus on Canadian television stations for many years, the series came back on CHCH-TV, exclusively for the province of Ontario market. In September 2007, Global picked up the show nationwide after CHCH-TV dropped it, claiming patents a unregistered trademark former time slot. Guiding Light returned to CHCH for the rest of its run when Global decided to air The Doctors, The 2008 TV series. Awards, Daytime Emmy Awards, Show. Individuals. Other awards, Writers Guild of America Award, Directors Guild of America Award, Head Writers and Executive Producers, DVD release. In January 2012, Soap Classics released a 4-disc DVD collection of 20 selected episodes. The oldest episode on the collection dates from April 1, 1980, while the latest episode is from September 14, 2009, during the show's final broadcast week. The company has since released special collections celebrating Reva Shane and Philippe Spalding. In May 2012, Soap Classics released the final 10 Guiding Light episodes on a 2-disc DVD set. Also beginning in June 2012, the series was later released on DVD in Germany beginning with the 1979 episodes. References. External links, CBS's homepage for Guiding Light.